Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody, call the meeting to order, and approve of the agenda, please. Sorry.
Be it hereby resolved that the agenda for the December 17th, 2025 regular meeting of council be adopted as printed and circulated.
Okay, can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Demers, second by Councillor Young. All in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Not seeing any. And minutes from December 3rd.
Be it hereby resolved that the minutes of the December 3rd, 2025 regular meeting of council be adopted as printed and circulated.
Okay, can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Barnes, second by Councillor Banbury. All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. Any business arising from the minutes? No, not seeing any. Okay, we're going to go into closed session number 1 today.
Okay, be it hereby resolved that council move into closed session at 3:02 p.m. Regarding A, education and training of members of council, local board, or committee under section 239, 3.1.
Okay, can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Banbury, second by Councillor Young. All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. And just let me know when we're in there. ahead.
Okay, be it hereby resolved that council does move into public meeting under the Planning Act to hear zone change number 12507 for the Township of Blandford-Blenheim regarding ARUs.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Demers, second by Councillor Barnes. All in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's carried. Dustin's not here yet.
Oh.
Do I gotta wait for him? I guess I can read it. Okay, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, just procedural normal. I am officially opening this public meeting, which is being held under the Planning Act for the purpose of hearing an application for a zone change in the Township of Blandford-Blenheim. I would like to advise those in attendance that the Ontario Land Tribunal has the power to dismiss an appeal if an appellant has not provided the council with oral submissions at a public meeting or a written submission before a bylaw is passed. Pursuant to recent changes under Bill 185, appeals are now generally limited to the applicant, a registered owner, a public body, specific persons, or the minister. I'd like to ask those in attendance that if they wish to receive notification of council's decision, they should sign the sheet by the door at the rear of the room, and please include your email address to receive future correspondence. But now I ask council members to state any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Not seeing any. There is one application being considered today, an application for zone change ZN 1-25-07. And if you want to come ahead and present, please. If you could maybe just state your name for the record too, just so it goes on.
Sure. Is this on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So my name for the record is Hannah Yeager, and I'm a policy planner with the county. So, just get this all together here. Good afternoon, mayors and members of council. So the application before you today concerns additional residential units. You may recall I visited your chambers on September the 3rd of this year to present some preliminary findings concerning the rural township's experiences with ARUs as part of a request to initiate this amendment. So if some of these slides feel familiar, that's probably why. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the provisions that would be affected by this amendment. And the intention of this exercise is to make minor changes to improve implementation and clarity and provide greater consistency with municipal and provincial policies. Next slide, please. So as part of our review, we learned that gross floor area is not meeting all of the desired outcomes for lot coverage. The proposed bylaw would therefore adjust how ARU scale is regulated by shifting away from gross floor area as the sole provision that regulates scale. So the proposed amendment would achieve this in two key ways. First, it would limit an ARU size through an existing definition, dwelling unit area. That's proposed to be amended to focus on spaces like bedrooms, kitchens, and bathrooms, while excluding areas unsuitable for living. Second, ground floor area, or the footprint of a building, is proposed to be used to calculate lot coverage. The existing definition for ground floor area would be amended to ensure that the types of structures affecting lot coverage outcomes, so stormwater management, for example, are counted while adding exclusions for the parts of a building that are less of a concern, such as eaves. In order to ensure that the proposed changes to lot coverage don't inadvertently allow for larger multi-story accessory buildings were not intended, the attached draft bylaw for your consideration today shows one approach to address that. So it uses both gross floor area in combination with the proposed amendments to lot coverage that uses ground floor area to regulate an accessory structure's size. An alternative approach, which is not in the attached bylaw, could be to limit accessory buildings to a maximum of 1 story where appropriate. Next slide, please. So in addition to amending that definition of ground floor area, we have some new definitions for distance from and detached ARU that would make existing requirements easier to calculate or to improve the bylaw's overall precision. Whereas amending the definition of principal dwelling will clarify that the addition of an ARU does not change the principal dwelling into any other type of dwelling. So the goal here is to make the intent of proposals more explicit if and when they do occur. Next slide, please. We can understand these next changes as those which improve consistency with municipal and provincial policy. So we're proposing to add a provision that requires ARUs to have direct access to a driveway shared by a principal dwelling, and that's an official plan requirement. This is intended to incentivize ARUs to remain within the established residential area on a farm, which again is a requirement of both the official plan and the 2024 provincial planning statement. Similarly, we're proposing to clarify what the maximum number and whether planning approval is required for detached ARUs. So this would depend on the zoning of the lot and again reflects the existing official plan policy. Next slide, please. Another legislative change that's recently occurred is Bill 185, the Cutting Red Tape to Build More Homes Act, which added new standards for ARUs. And it now requires for fully serviced settlement areas, an ARU cannot be required to have a more restrictive lot area than the principal use, and municipalities must permit a maximum of 45% lot coverage for all buildings and structures on a lot where an ARU is established. So the proposed amendment would capture these new requirements and it would affect the R1, the R2, the R3, and the CC zones. Next slide, please. On to technical amendments. So this is where staff feedback during our consultation really helped to shape the draft bylaw that's attached for your consideration today. For brevity, I won't summarize all of the proposed changes. These are outlined in greater detail in the staff report, but I'll note some key items for council's consideration. So with respect to garden suites, ongoing consultation with staff across municipalities suggests that dwelling unit area is also an appropriate standard to regulate the scale of garden suites. So this, in addition to earlier changes that removed the minimum floor area requirements for garden suites, would create greater consistency between how garden suites and ARUs are assessed at the municipal level. With regard to MDS, we are proposing to amend an existing provision relating to minimum distance separation 1 calculation requirements. The existing provincial guidance document essentially already provides direction, however, has not explicitly stated how those requirements relate to ARUs. So we've reviewed recently updated training from OMAFA, which builds from this existing direction, and that clarifies that MDS 1 only applies to detached ARUs. So the proposed amendment would reflect and add this distinction. Next slide, please. With regard to accessory structures, we found an opportunity to make the implementation of accessory structures more consistent. So for example, the bylaw proposes to add a maximum lot coverage percentage of 10% for accessory structures in the A1 and A2 zones, and that just reflects the approach already taken for all the other zones. And then lastly, recent feedback from Oxford County's Public Works Department has confirmed there is sufficient capacity for 2 ARUs in Plattsville. So the existing prohibition for that area has been removed from the zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. In terms of next steps, we provided a recommendation that council approve in principle the proposed bylaw amendment and that the finalized bylaw be brought back to a subsequent meeting to be passed. Next slide. I'd like to thank you all for your time. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, any questions from council? I just have one. With the 2 ARUs in Plattsville that are permitted, they would only be ones that are in, they're not like a separate building together, they only be ones that are allowed in side an existing home?
So my understanding, and Macon House is here just to jump in case I get this wrong, for ARUs in Plattsville, it would permit up to 2, and one could be in the dwelling and one could be in a detached structure, or both could be inside the existing principal dwelling.
Okay. I'm just wondering if we had, I was thinking, I know the lot size, I don't know whether we have any lots that are actually big enough to do that in Plattsville, but I could be wrong. So, okay. Anything else from council? Nope. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any members of council have any questions or regard further information or clarification? I already asked you that. Are there any interested parties in attendance who wish to speak to this application? Yep. If you want to come up to stand up to the mic there. I know we all know who you are, but if you can state your name as well for the record.
Doug Beaton from Princeton. I did submit a written document for members of council to read, basically outlining my issues with not what's being presented today particularly. This is cleaning up the language of the ARU policy, you know, dotting the i's and crossing the t's and answering various questions. My understanding that a ARU is not allowed in Plattsville, Drumble, or Bright. Now, I don't know why it's not Bright. I never read that until early this week, but I presume there's not enough water capacity in Bright. So this is a housing option that residents or young people are not being able to take advantage of, and that's the idea of ARUs, is to create a housing option for people, whether they be young people or elderly people or whatever the situation may be. It could be a rental unit or a unit you could lease or a family member occupy, blah, blah, blah. So I guess my first concern is, why is Drumble or Plattsville, with Drumble just having a sewage treatment upgrade, why are they not allowed ARUs? Because it seems odd to me that this wasn't a consideration when it was upgraded. And if it's not on the horizon that these are going to be accepted, what good is an ARU bylaw in the township of Blandford-Blenheim? It's no good to anybody, except the farmers have done a really good uptake on it, and they're employing it because they have the acreage, blah, 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 and the need for this type of housing. So it's serving the farmers, but it's not serving anybody else. And when it comes to a village like Princeton, and I compared Bright to Princeton, not knowing that there was probably a water supply lack in Bright, which there isn't in Princeton no more than there is in Drumble or Plattsville. You need 1.4 acres. You need twice the area that you would require for an R1 house. You need 0.69 hectares for a standalone R1 house. You need double that, 1.48 acres, if you're going to put an ARU on the property. This doesn't make any sense. So why are we allowing this to go on? Apparently, the Oxford County Board of Health had great influence at one time in advising the planning department, and the Oxford County Board of Health, to my knowledge, hasn't been in existence since 2020, and I question their efficiency even at that time to be commenting on septic systems, because great advances have been made in septic systems, and as I wrote in my letter, you well know that Princeton has been relegated to maybe make use of their own septic systems or advanced septic systems or new septic system technology in any development that's going to occur in Princeton. And there is an upcoming plan of subdivision being submitted, I believe, and there are at least 5 properties in Princeton that could submit a draft plan for R1 subdivisions. They'll all be on septic systems. So, a lot of them, I was involved with a submission last year to council, which was approved for a 20,000 square foot lot. That's half an acre, let's say. It's a huge lot in Princeton. And just for that, for example, it was approved by council because council uses common sense when dealing with these issues. There's another small lot on Gissing Street, 66 by 132, which is an old lot in a village. And it was also approved for an R1 residence, and it didn't seem to have any problem getting by the building department and approval for a septic system. So again, council used common sense and approved the lot. And I count at least 50 of those lots in Princeton. They're attached to houses, but they're called double or triple lots. Why are we not building ARUs on those lots? Because the modern technology will allow it. And in fact, in Brant County, if you, I've been talking to the engineers there, when they're doing site plans for rural residents, and could be in a subdivision, say in Scotland or one of the other small communities in Brant County, they often request the availability of an ARU to be included. The septic system is designed, one system does both units. So there is, this is adopted policy in Brant. So what I'm saying is it's time to apply for Blandford-Blenheim to approach the County of Oxford, the Planning Department, Public Works, and the Building Department in your own facility here, who administers issuance of building permits and septic system approvals, who are aware of the new technology, that they get together and they apply some common sense to where you can build a structure. So I have a lot of stuff, but I'm going to go to the end. The long-term goals that I would like to see is offer a choice of house options in Blandford-Blenheim Township. The villages need more people. Why do I say that? Well, in 1985, when the Senior Citizen Building opened in Princeton, there were 27 organizations in that little village that contributed to that project. And I know these projects intimately. I was involved. In 1997, when the Museum Library Complex opened, there were 17 organizations. So already, the number of organizations has fallen. At this date in time, I'm giving the village credit for maybe 5 organizations that allows for volunteerism and contribution to the community. So what's happening? Well, the volunteers are dying off, and families are too busy today to really do more than contribute to their own families with 2 people working and all the other things that are involved in life. So we need more people to get back to that village community spirit and that contribution that individuals can make to a community and the interest that they provide and the money they put in the community. Churches are disappearing. We lost 2 schools in Princeton. Well, the Mennonites came and they established a small school, very few students in it, and they established a church there. But the other churches are going. Businesses are, well, there's some good businesses, but there's room for more. So we need to attract people to these villages because we have everything here. Look where we're located. 401, 403, number 2 highway, a Trans-Canada highway, all the north-south connections, 2 major railways going right into, all converging in Oxford County. Where are we located? We need to promote ourselves. Growth is not a bad thing. So I'd like to see an election issue next year. What's your vision for Oxford County and the Township of Blandford-Blenheim? We can play a major role. I've witnessed that Blandford-Blenheim has not been fairly treated by Oxford County in the last 10 or 15 years. Now I'm glad to see that the mayor is on the ball and made a couple of accomplishments with Oxford County with regard to filtration in Plattsville and some signage in Princeton for a crosswalk. But what about this sewage treatment problem? Why isn't it being addressed? They know the provincial demands. We're not a growth area like Paris is, but I'm thinking that we will be. So we better be prepared. So we have to get on the county's case to service the community properly and to, in places like Princeton or Bright or the smaller hamlets, allow people to put an ARU on their property without 1.48 acres. You know, I heard all the terrible talk about land being misused for housing in the villages, taking agricultural land out of use. Well, we didn't really, because the footprint of Princeton allows for about well over 100 acres of development. So there's lots of potential there. And by the way, the Township of Blandford-Blenheim has enlarged the footprint of Princeton because they built the fire hall and created more R1 land in between, or whatever it's going to be. So it doesn't seem to be a problem to do these things, but let's, I have a map at home, and I had 130 lots in Princeton that could be developed. Now that included the schoolyard. So I reduced it to 50 in this presentation tonight. 50 lots that could have a house on them, or an ARU that could be a rental property or a lease property, house some young people. What's the biggest problem in this country that no political group can do anything about? Providing housing for young people and some hope. We can do it. We can do it because they're smaller units, they're affordable, and it's time to do something about it. So I would like council to think about what I wrote and what I'm saying tonight, and perhaps pass a resolution that could go forward to the county. Let's start using some common sense in what is required for a septic system for a lot in the villages or the country. With the advanced systems, I forgot to tell you that I had it involved with a lot in Princeton. If you put a standard system in on 20,000 square feet, it took the whole lot to put the septic system in. If you put the advanced tertiary approved system, it's one of them, takes 1/3 of the area. So it's a mini sewage treatment plant. So who determines what's the minimum size for a lot anyways? It used to be, in the zoning by originally came out, you needed 15,000 square, 1/3 of an acre for a house. And if water was available, public water, it could be reduced to 10,000 square feet. Now it's all 30,000 square feet. Who established this? Is this a provincial standard? Is it a county standard? Did they pick a number out of the air? But they doubled the amount of land needed. Doesn't make any sense with what's available today. So I'm going to conclude. I don't know if there's any questions. I didn't even cover a quarter of what's on this page, but I think I'd like council to consider making a resolution to pass it on to the county, that they want some answers to these questions, and that the mayor continue to work with the county for enhancement of the sewage treatment systems in Blandford-Blenheim Township, because we have the land and there's all kinds of approvals out there. Builders are not building till the profit is back there again and the buyers are there. So I think in the meantime, let's pick Princeton. I like Princeton. Lived there all my life. Let's pick Princeton as a place for very small growth for ARUs. Now what the R1 people do in their development land, that's up to them. But I would encourage them, if they ask me, to ask for an ARU in every building they put up. Thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity of speaking tonight. And I'm not being critical of the planning department, but they take their direction from the politicians and the bureaucrats that they're working for. So I think they need to be brought up to speed. It's what's required. Let's look for a solution. Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas.
Yeah, thank you, Bev. I actually was trying to write down a few things here. I always pronounce it wrong, so I always get a tertiary or whatever, that's tertiary. But anyway, I think we have approved 2 of those systems, I think, so far in Blandford-Blenheim. I think one was in Bright. Was the other in Princeton? Yeah, I thought we approved 2, but I know we've approved at least 1 for sure. And yes, 100%, they're by the building code, so 100%. And I know they're meant for smaller lots, but you still have to be able to have the proper drainage in order to have them, I believe is what I was told by one of our local contractors, that you know, if the whole lot's clay, it may have to be bigger than, say, a proper lot. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I agree 100%. They're a system that I don't know if it's really used very much in Oxford County yet.
Yes, yes.
yeah.
I mean, I would say it's 25% anyways. I mean, there's a lot more gone in this township, maybe in the building department. It's a choice between the installer and the homeowner. The tertiary systems are more money, but they take up a lot less area. And I think I'm familiar with the one on Baird Street. That's the street where the hotel used to be on?
Yeah, right on the main street there.
I'm familiar with that lot. It was a matter of size of the lot, and they had to do it. So it's called a System O system there, but Waterloo Biofilter has something, EcoFlow has something. Now these systems, supposedly, they're supposed to be tested every year and the results handed into building department, whoever's in the authority that's in charge. I must say it's probably not being done because it's forgotten about. But it's only going to get better. That's what I can say. Tertiary means a third method of treatment. That's what tertiary means.
I got maybe a question for Dustin, and I don't mean, or somebody, I don't mean to put you on the spot. If somebody come forward and wanted to do a whole, say a village that doesn't have that service, if they come forward and wanted to put a whole subdivision of tertiary systems, how would that be something that Oxford County would say, and I know I'm kind of throwing you off here, but would it be approved, or is that something, I guess it depends on every function, but I'm just curious if.
Well, traditionally, Oxford County's looked at lot size.
Right.
And with minimum lot size being the 2,800 meters square, that's generally done so with the idea that you're going to get your standard septic system on site there, because there's enough space to have a second one if the first one fails. So historically, Oxford County has looked at lot sizes, which is in conjunction with what type of septic system is going on there. So to answer your hypothetical question, I mean, we would be looking at the lot sizes to start with and going from there. It's kind of hard to answer, you know, for sure.
Yeah.
Without seeing the plan in front of us.
I guess the part I have a hard time concepting, if it's part of the building code that it's an allowed system, then, you know, I look at, and I'll use Princeton for an example, is I look at the size of they're all going to be what, I think 3/4 acre lots or something along that size. Has there, and I don't know whether there has or not, but has there been any thought to, you know, let's make those lots 1/3 of an acre, and now instead of taking up all that land for systems, that these systems could be put in. And I know it's a cost to the resident, I get that, but that would be their choice if they built on that. I'm just curious if there's been a thought to that, and I'll let you answer that. Sure.
Thank you. So I'll jump in, and I'm just going to refer to my notes so I don't miss any key points. So my professional opinion from a planning perspective is when we talk about ATUs or tertiary systems being used to justify reduced minimum lot areas, and Dustin's done a great job explaining how we use the current minimum lot area, and we use it established on that class 4 system. So yes, ATUs are great at focusing on nitrates, but it's important to understand they don't cover all of the contaminants that affect groundwater health, and ensuring that we're protecting groundwater health is, you know, a requirement of the provincial planning system from 2024 as well as the official plan. So that's considering things like phosphorus and bacteria. So these things are beyond nitrates. So that's one point we have to consider. Another thing to consider is from an enforcement perspective. So yes, the building code does, you know, permit them, and Mr. Beaton's done a great job noting the enforcement piece. We can't guarantee over the long term that an ATU wouldn't be converted to a class 4 system over time. So if we're using ATU to justify, a reduced minimum lot area, and a new Class 4 system is put on that lot, that could be impactful in a negative way for groundwater contamination. Another thing to consider is in terms of provincial guidance, we rely on the D54 guidelines. And so those are guidelines that are used to help practitioners reduce, mitigate, or eliminate the impact of contaminants on groundwater systems through private systems. They are helpful, but they're also very old. So I think they were published maybe 1993. They're long overdue for an update. Those guidelines are great in that they do talk about nitrates. They also reference other groundwater contaminants as being things that we should consider, and they don't consider ATUs. So we are actively waiting for those D54 guidelines to be updated to encompass ATUs as an option. And then the other piece I'll leave council to consider is from an enforcement or legislative responsibility perspective, if enough systems do fail, we don't want that to happen, but if they do fail within a larger density area and the groundwater is polluted, the MECP can require municipalities to step in, take responsibility, and provide full municipal services. So that is a risk over, it's a risk that is higher for these ATUs, recognizing the enforcement things that we've noted, compared to conventional Class 4 systems on the lot size that we've put out in our official plan and our zoning bylaw. So I'll leave it at that. Hopefully that adds some more
Okay.
information.
Just one question, and Bev, I said I'm not 100% sure the answer, so I'm going to ask it as well. Who says the lot size for a traditional septic system? Is it the province or the county?
So the D54 guidelines provide a recommended lot size as a starting point, and then provide some ways to kind of assess potential impact. For the purposes of like ARUs in the zoning bylaw, it's the official plan states those lot area requirements for ARUs, and then the zoning provisions comply with the official plan. So for the purposes of the scope of this project, we're not contemplating changing the official plan requirements. We're just maintaining that consistency piece.
Okay.
Thanks.
Great, I've asked lots. Anything else from council at all? No? Just one thing too, Bev, I just happen to remember, I wrote it down. I think I don't know how many years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, you stood there and we talked about lot sizes and ARUs, and I 100% agree with you. I think I mentioned I have a good sized lot here and I couldn't put an ARU on it, and I don't know, I just trying to think when we mentioned Plattsville, I can't think of a single lot in any of our villages that you could actually put an ARU, separate ARU on, not in the home. So I agree 100%.
You can.
Yeah.
It is physically possible.
Yeah.
And like I said, this council used some common sense. Let's take that lot on Gisson Street, 66 by 132. It's 8,700 square feet. It will take it may even take a standard septic system, I don't know, but I presume it's a tertiary system that's going in there. So let's say my neighbor comes to you, the one across the street, you know him quite well, he owns,
Yep.
he has 266 by 132 lots. If he comes to you and says, I'd like to put an ARU on my lot so my daughter has a place to live. And I can see this council saying, yes, you can. You either upgrade your own septic system, which is fairly new, or you put a tertiary system in, comply with your building department here, get the approval, get a competent licensed installer to put it in. As far as I'm concerned, the building code trumps planning.
Okay. Thank you, Bev. Okay. Anything else from council at all? Okay. Does the applicant, I guess yourself, do you wish to reply to any issues raised? I think you have already.
Thank you. To you, through you, to your question, I just want to note for a point of clarity, I'm glad the discussion is being had, but through the zoning bylaw, there are no minimum lot area requirements for attached area use. So provided the principal dwelling meets those lot area requirements, an attached area use is still an option for members of the public or proponents who are seeking to add that option for housing. So just for a point of clarity.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from council? No? This application will be dealt with by council at its regular meeting immediately following this public meeting, and I will now officially close this public meeting, and a resolution to rise, please.
Be it hereby resolved that the public meeting be adjourned and that the regular meeting of council reconvene.
Okay, can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Demers, second by Councillor Young. Any comments? All in favor? And opposed, if any? Thank you.
To have a resolution to
Yep.
approve in principle.
Yep.
Okay. Be it hereby resolved that the Council of the Township of Blandford-Blenheim approve in principle the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, file number ZN 12507, to introduce amendments to the Township zoning bylaw number 1360/2002, and that the bylaw be brought back to a subsequent meeting of council for adoption.
Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Demers, second by Councillor Young. Any comments? No? All in favor? And opposed, if any? And that's carried. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we have no delegations today and correspondence specific.
Whereas the Government of Ontario recently approved Bill 68, which establishes Ontario Provincial Conservation Agency, and whereas the Government of Ontario is proposing the consolidation of the province's 36 conservation authorities into 7 regional conservation authorities, including the Grand River Conservation Authority, which will be amalgamated amongst 8 current authorities to become part of the Lake Erie Regional Conservation Authority. And whereas the 38 municipalities within the GRCA watershed boundaries today and the 81 municipalities that are proposed to make up the LERCA in 2027 will be levied to fund both the Regional Conservation Authority as well as the Provincial Conservation Agency. And whereas the new organizations will result in the degradation of local governance, local fiscal accountability, local service delivery, local environmental focus, and unprecedented funding by local municipalities of both a large regional authority and a provincial agency. And whereas the GRCA Board of Directors has responded to Bill 68 and the proposal for a conservation authority's consolidation within a constructive and thoughtful alternative that retains local governance, local service delivery, local environmental focus, and local fiscal accountability, while responding constructively to the Government of Ontario's concerns about accountability, planning, and responsiveness. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Blandford-Blenheim calls on the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks, and the Chief Conservation Executive meeting GRCA representatives to review the GRCA alternative proposal to Conservation Authorities consolidation, and that the Minister and the Chief Conservation Executive seriously consider the GRCA proposal for the Conservation Authorities as it enunciates a path forward that will address the government's concerns most democratically and productively, and that this motion be circulated to the Premier of Ontario, Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks, Chief Conservation Executive, and local members of Provincial Parliament for their information and action where appropriate.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Demers, seconded by Councillor Young. Any comments? No? All in favor? And opposed, if any? And that's carried. Good thing this next one's shorter.
Whereas the Conservation Authorities Act 1946 enables municipalities to establish local conservation authorities, and when municipalities choose to form such authorities, they assume responsibility for governance and funding through the appointment of a board of directors and the provision of an annual levy to cover expenses. And whereas the Township of Blandford-Blenheim established the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority with other consenting municipalities within the watershed, initially formed in 1947, and whereas local municipalities currently provide 35% of total conservation authority funding while the province of Ontario provides approximately 2%, 2026 budget, and whereas municipalities have governed their respective conservation authorities for decades, tailoring programs and services to local watershed needs, maintaining accountable service standards, and ensuring fair and predictable costs for ratepayers, and whereas conservation authorities collectively own and manage thousands of acres of land, many of these properties were entrusted to the URTCA for long-term protection, stewardship, and the public good, with the expectation that such lands would be cared for by locally governed conservation authorities. And whereas Bill 68, Schedule 3, proposes the creation of the Ontario Provincial Conservation Agency, a crown corporation that would assume governance responsibilities and consolidate Ontario's 36 conservation authorities into 7 regional authorities with municipal cost apportionment yet to be defined. And whereas the province already possesses the authority to establish overarching legislation, regulations, and standards through the Conservation Authorities Act and the Ministry of the Environment, Parks, and Conservation. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of Township Blandford-Blenheim calls on the Government of Ontario to maintain local, independent, municipally governed, watershed-based conservation authorities to ensure strong local representation in decisions related to municipal levies, community-focused service delivery, and the protection and management of conservation lands. And further, that while the Township of Blandford-Blenheim supports provincial goals for consistent permit approval processes, shared services, and digital modernization, imposing a new top-down agency structure without strong local accountability and governance risks creating unnecessary cost, red tape, and bureaucracy, thereby undermining efficiency and responsiveness to local community needs. And further, that the Township of Blandford-Blenheim supports efforts to balance expertise, capacity, and program delivery across the province, and requests that the province work collaboratively with municipalities and local conservation authorities to determine the most effective level of strategic consolidation to achieve both provincial and local objectives. And further, that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Ontario Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks, local MPPs, Association of the Municipalities of Ontario, Rural Ontario Municipal Association, Area Indigenous Communities, all municipalities, conservation authorities, and Conservation Ontario.
Thank you very much. I thought mine were long-winded at county. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councilor Banbury, seconded by Councilor Barnes. Any comments? All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. Okay, and our general correspondence.
Be it hereby resolved that the general correspondence items be received as information.
Okay, can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councilor Demers, second by Councilor Young. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's carried. Okay, and staff reports. Ray, is he here today?
I'll present
No,
that.
you're doing okay.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, 2 members of council. This is the monthly building report for the month of November. I'll note it was a slower month. I think we're finding that our building permit statistics, as we near the end of the year, are very similar to many comparable municipalities in the area, and we're hopeful that it sort of improves as we move along. But again, this is the summary for the month of November.
Okay, any questions on the report? No, not seeing any? Okay, go ahead.
Be it hereby resolved that report CBO 2512 be received as information.
Okay, could I get a mover and second, please? Moved by Councilor Demers, second by Councilor Young. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's carried. And next is Drew Davidson, our Director of Protective Services. Welcome, Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Afternoon. I'm just here to present my monthly report for the month of November. As you have hopefully read through here, staff has attended training evenings throughout the township just to be a face and connect with our firefighters to make sure that they know that we're always available and listening there and helping in any way we can. Biannually, we have our RIFSOC group meets as all the Oxford fire chiefs, so Woodstock, Tillsonburg, and Ingersoll join us as well. You may have heard NG 911 on the news or throughout some news medias. Our zone is, we're one of the last ones to get it, so it's an upgrade to the 911 system. Essentially what it is they're redoing how EMS is tiered. They're going to ask a lot more questions, dive deeper into the call. Right now, if an ambulance was to respond, you called in with shortness of breath and an ambulance was dispatched to you, and then a minute later somebody called in with a heart attack, the ambulance will still have to go to that shortness of breath first without being able to transfer over to the heart attack. So this takes it, and this you will be able to, and it's going to go from possibly 10 criterias, and I believe there's over 2,000 different criterias now, this new matrix that they've made up. So all the questions have not been answered. There is a training information session in January, so I'll be able to have more of an update. But one of the good things is we are one of the last ones to get it, so hopefully the bugs will be worked out before it comes there. But that is coming in October is when that'll be implemented in this area here. We also had the academic manager there from the OFM, Dean Kerwin, who, if you might remember, was the fire chief of Zora before. And because the RIFSOC group kind of implemented this training program way back when, we're one of the leaders in that front, and from time to time they'll stop in and just ask us to critique something or what we thought of something. So it's good to connect with them, and because, as we know, our certification is there and we're looking really good, and so it was great to see her show up as well. Thank you again to council for attending our recognition night. That was well attended and went over very well with firefighters. Attended our Chiefs Conference in the third week in November there, with a lot of good discussion and presentations from Ministry of Labor was there, as far as some key takeaways or just some areas that we can improve on, what they might be looking for, because it's probably not a matter of if, but it's when they'll be knocking on the door, looking for those training records, looking for policies and procedures in place. So some good takeaways there. And then the NFPA laboratory did a presentation there. It was quite interesting, and they took on EV fires and how to control them. And do you use blankets? Do you use a piercing nozzle? What do you do when that battery's in thermal runaway? And the key takeaway is their number one thing is to put water on it. So there is no set product out there that will eliminate anything other than just put large amounts of water on it. So as chiefs, we're kind of relieved to hear that at this point, because if we have anything, we have water. So we did complete our emergency management exercise, the tabletop for inclement weather, and that was attended by most of the staff around here, and that's now in the clerk's hand to kind of dial that in and bring it forward at a later date. As you know, or probably know, November, early in December has been quite high call volume with MVCs and everything, and I just want to thank everyone for their support, because I know I've called on all the township, especially roads department, for helping us out too in that regard. But our firefighters are up to the challenge, but we hope people will stop running into each other out there. So that's my report for the month of November.
Okay, thank you very much. Seems odd, as both electricians, that you put water on that fire anyway. Any questions from council at all? No, not seeing any. Okay, go ahead.
Be it hereby resolved that report FC 2520 be received as information.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Banbury, second by Councillor Young. Any comments? I noticed you saw the parade there for Drumbo. It's back on the main corner, not at the pavilion at the over at the park. Just throw that out there. Okay, all in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's carried. Did I give you a second for that?
Yep. Oh, you
Yeah, I
got it.
thought I did. I lost it for a second. Okay, thank you very much. And next is Denise, Director of Finance, please. Oh, she's not here either. Okay, you're on.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to members of council, this is the annual report where staff are seeking direction to bind the renewal for the township's municipal insurance. This year, we're recommending proceeding with intact public entities. Council will recall that we undertook a formal costing process last year and recognized a fairly significant efficiency in transitioning to IPE. This year, given their fairly modest increase of 3.85%, which represents a budget impact of about $7,800 on a $200,000 policy, we saw it worthwhile to proceed as is. I just wanted to speak really briefly to some of the value-added services that we have realized in working with intact public entities. I think the difference in service that we've recognized very recently has had positive impacts across all of our departments. We've had Intact involved, sort of boots on the ground with the fire department. We've had them working directly with the manager of community services and his team, and we are finding that it's a valuable service to have, especially given that we don't have any in-house risk management. That's not to say that we shouldn't go back to market in the future. I think we're keeping an eye on that, but this year, given the recommended increase and looking at some of the broader trends in the municipal insurance space, we felt comfortable with this recommendation. With that said, I'm happy to answer any questions that council might have.
Any questions from council? 3.8, pretty much cost of living. Can't go wrong with that, I guess. Okay, go ahead.
Be it hereby resolved that report TR 2515 be received as information, and further, that council instruct the treasurer to bind the renewal for the township's municipal insurance with intact public entities.
Okay, can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Demmer, second by Councillor Barnes. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's carried. Okay, and next is Sarah, Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you,
Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You have before you the municipal alcohol policy revision again. At the November 19th, 2025 meeting of council's staff proposed an update to the corporate municipal alcohol policy. This policy imposes additional requirements beyond the special occasion permit required by the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario. Given feedback from the November report, and from that meeting, staff have removed the proposal to require security at certain events in municipal facilities. No other changes have been made from that policy proposal on November the 19th. Should council agree to the proposed attachment, the attached municipal alcohol policy, staff will bring back the bylaw to the regular meeting in January.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on that at all? Councillor Demers.
I don't think it requires a policy change, but from a practical standpoint, are we still going to recommend to those that are applying that they consider getting security? Like we've asked for them to not, we've asked for it to not be a requirement, but are we still going to recommend?
My understanding is that without the policy, we wouldn't be recommending external security services for, and we wouldn't be assessing a level of risk between medium, high, and
Okay.
low risk.
Okay.
Or passive risk.
Okay, anything else from council? No? Okay.
To adopt the,
What's that?
read the resolution?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Be it hereby resolved that report DC 2520 be received as information, and that council adopt the revisions to the municipal alcohol policy as presented in report DC 2520.
Okay, can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Young, seconded by Councillor Banbury. Any comments? All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. Okay, reports from council members. Anything new? I just mentioned the one thing about the Drumbo Parade. Yep. That's it? Okay. Any unfinished business? Notice motions? New business? Are we doing the closed?
I'd say it's really up to council. We can go in, and if we don't finish it, we'll come out.
Okay. Okay, we'll go into, before we go into close though, I just want to, I may not be here, I have to leave to go to my grandson's school play at 20 after 5, so I'm not sure I'll be here at the end of the meeting, but I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I know I've thanked all staff already for the job they've done, and council as well this year. It's been, it's hard to believe that we're going into our final year already of next year will be election year. So anyway, I just want to say thank you to everybody, and as I said, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And in saying that, we'll go into closed session.
Be it hereby resolved that council move into closed session under the authority of section 239 of the Municipal Act at 4:58 p.m. to discuss A, CAO 2536, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal employees, section 239-2B, regarding CAO annual performance review.
Okay, can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Young, second by Councillor Banbury. All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. Thank you. And we'll just go into closed. Okay, and
I have the resolution regarding closed.
yep.
Be it hereby resolved that the council provided direction regarding report CAO 2536, CAO annual performance review.
Okay, can I move in a second, please? Moved by Counselor Demers, second by Counselor Barnes. All in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's carried. And bylaws.
Be it hereby resolved that the following bylaw be read a first and second time. Bylaw 2525-2025 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council.
Okay, move in a seconder, please. Moved by Counselor Banbury. I had a barn and a Banbury all together. Counselor Banbury, second by Counselor Young. All in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's carried. Okay,
Be it hereby resolved that the following bylaw be read a third and final time. A, bylaw 2025 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council.
okay, can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Counselor Demers, second by Counselor Barnes. All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. Nothing under other. And anything else, Counselor Young? No? All good? All right. Have adjournment to the next meeting, please.
Whereas business before council has been completed at 5:09 PM, be it hereby resolved that council adjourn to meet again on Wednesday, January 14th at 4 PM.
Okay, can I get a mover and a second, please? Moved by Counselor Demers, second by Counselor Barnes. Any comments? It's my birthday that day. All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. Thank you, council.